He was, for decades, the very definition of a modern movie star, an actor whose face was as iconic as the characters he portrayed. Johnny Depp didn't just play roles, he inhabited them, disappearing into the skin of pirates, mad hatters, and demon barbers, with a chameleonic brilliance that felt less like acting and more like alchemy. From the gentle oddity of Edward Scissorhands to the swaggering chaos of Captain Jack Sparrow, he built a career on celebrating the outsider, the weird, and the wonderfully broken. He was an easy artist to admire, the quintessential rebel who seemed to operate by his own unique code, a man who valued artistic integrity over box office formulas. For years, Hollywood not only tolerated his eccentricities but celebrated them, as his choices, no matter how strange, consistently translated into critical acclaim and massive commercial success. However, in the mid-2010s, the narrative surrounding Johnny Depp underwent a seismic and vicious shift. The artist was recast as a monster. The rebel was branded an abuser. The industry that had lavished him with wealth and fame turned on him with breathtaking speed, exiling him from the very world he helped define. And while this is not an attempt to ignore the complexities of his highly publicized personal life, there is another perspective to consider, one that suggests his professional execution was not merely a response to allegations, but a systematic erasure of an artist who had become too independent, too unpredictable, and ultimately, a threat to the corporate machinery of modern Hollywood. The first part of Johnny Depp's story is the tale of his spectacular rise and the deliberate construction of an identity that would, in the end, make him a target. The blueprint for Depp's career was forged in the fires of rebellion from the very beginning. Unlike the classic leading men of Hollywood's golden age, Depp was never interested in playing the hero. He was drawn to the poetic, the grotesque, the beautifully flawed. His breakthrough role as the titular character in Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands, 1990, was more than a part. It was a manifesto. Edward, with his tragic innocence and dangerous, delicate hands, became a metaphor for Depp's own relationship with fame, a sensitive soul thrust into a world that both adored and feared his difference. This collaboration with Burton would become the cornerstone of his career, a creative partnership built on a shared love for the strange. Through roles like Ed Wood, the headless Ichabod Crane, and Willy Wonka, Depp cultivated an image as Hollywood's premier outsider. He was the anti-star, a man who seemed profoundly uncomfortable with the trappings of fame, preferring to lose himself in characters rather than promote himself as a brand. This carefully curated rebel identity was, ironically, his most bankable asset. Hollywood, a town built on marketable personas, saw the immense value in Depp's weirdness. It was a safe rebellion, a controlled burn that sold tickets, action figures, and a powerful myth. The system functioned perfectly as long as he played his part, both on screen and off. He could be famously late to sets. He could spend millions on extravagant whims. He could be enigmatic and withdrawn in interviews, so long as the machine kept turning a profit. The Pirates of the Caribbean franchise was the ultimate embodiment of this symbiosis. His portrayal of Captain Jack Sparrow, a performance so bizarre the studio initially feared it would sink the film, became a cultural phenomenon, earning him an Oscar nomination and generating billions of dollars. He was, in the cold calculus of the industry, a product, and a wildly successful one. But this relationship is a Faustian bargain. The industry gives you fame and fortune, but in return, it demands your narrative. It owns your story, and it will tell it in the way that best serves its own interests. The first signs of the coming storm were not professional, but personal, and they would provide the ammunition for his eventual professional downfall. His relationship with actress and model Amber Heard began in 2012, and from the outside, it appeared to be the union of two beautiful, successful people. They married in 2015. Just over a year later, in May 2016, Heard filed for divorce and obtained a temporary restraining order against Depp, alleging domestic abuse. She presented photographs of a bruised face and stories of violent outbursts. The narrative was cataclysmic. In the court of public opinion, fueled by salacious headlines and a rapidly evolving social media landscape, Depp was swiftly convicted. The image of the quirky artist was instantly replaced by the portrait of a wife-beater. Hollywood's response was swift and surgical, following a now familiar protocol for scandal. Depp was dropped from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, the very series he had built into a global juggernaut. He was asked to resign from the Fantastic Beasts series, where he had a prominent role. His agency and publicists, entities that had built their reputations alongside his, severed ties. The message was clear and chilling. You are toxic, and we are cutting you loose. This process requires silence and compliance from the condemned. The expectation is that you disappear, issue a vague apology, or quietly check into rehab, allowing the industry to move on without ever having to confront the messy, complicated truth. It is a sacrifice of the individual to preserve the system's illusion of morality, and more importantly, its bottom line. But Johnny Depp refused to follow the script. His decision to fight back, to sue Heard for defamation in the United States, was an act of unprecedented rebellion. It was a direct challenge to the system's control over his narrative. Hollywood operates in the shadows, with sealed settlements, non-disclosure agreements, and whispered conversations. It resolves its dirt behind closed doors. By taking his fight to a public courtroom where every allegation, every text message, every piece of evidence would be broadcast to the world, Depp was pulling back the curtain. He was forcing the industry to play a game it never agreed to, on a field where its traditional weapons, PR spin, media relationships, and financial pressure, held less power. He was, in effect, calling the system's bluff. And in doing so, he became more dangerous than ever. The man Hollywood was trying to erase was not going quietly. He was preparing to speak, and in his voice, the world would hear a story far more complex and damaging to the Hollywood machine than anyone could have anticipated. The public courtroom battle that unfolded in 2022 would become one of the most watched and dissected legal proceedings in entertainment history. What began as a defamation case quickly evolved into something far greater. A live autopsy of a Hollywood relationship, a brutal examination of truth and narrative, and ultimately, a stunning referendum on the industry's rush to judgment. As Johnny Depp took the stand, the world witnessed not the monster he had been portrayed as, but a man laying himself bare, his voice often reduced to a vulnerable whisper as he recounted stories of addiction, personal turmoil, and what he alleged was the psychological and physical torment he endured at the hands of his ex-wife. The trial became a spectacle not for its tabloid drama, but for the way it systematically dismantled the carefully constructed public image of both parties. Depp's legal team presented a counter-narrative of mutual abuse, alleging that Heard was the primary aggressor in their volatile relationship. They introduced a torrent of evidence. Audio recordings where Heard admitted to hitting him and taunted him for not being enough of a man to stand up to her. Testimonies from his inner circle describing his isolation. And most damningly, evidence that challenged the veracity of Heard's most graphic abuse claims. The world watched as the victim and villain archetypes, so crucial to Hollywood's simplistic morality plays, were blurred into an unsettling shade of gray. The trial exposed the messy, painful, and deeply human reality of two profoundly damaged people locked in a toxic cycle, a reality far too complex for the headlines that had initially condemned him. For Hollywood, this ambiguity was terrifying. The industry thrives on simple stories: the hero, the villain, the victim, the abuser. It needs these clean, defensible labels to make swift, risk-averse business decisions. Depp's public legal battle introduced a virus of doubt into that simple code. It demonstrated that a media narrative, no matter how widely accepted, could be challenged. It proved that the court of public opinion could be appealed. The public's overwhelming support for Depp, which manifested in viral videos and social media campaigns, signaled a profound shift in power. The audience was no longer passively consuming the stories fed to them by entertainment news and studio publicists. They were engaging, analyzing evidence, and forming their own verdicts. This loss of narrative control is a studio executive's worst nightmare. The verdict in June 2022 was a legal vindication, with the jury finding that Heard had defamed Depp on all 3 counts. But its cultural impact was far more significant. It was a landmark victory for the principle of due process in the court of public opinion. The fallout from this exposure is the true source of Hollywood's lingering fear. The Depp-Heard trial created a dangerous precedent. It empowered other figures who feel they have been maligned by the system to consider fighting back publicly. It emboldened fans to question the official narratives handed down by studios and media outlets. It introduced a new and unpredictable variable into the risk assessment calculus of billion-dollar franchises. How do you ensure a film when your star could be engulfed in an unscripted, live-streamed legal battle that recontextualizes their entire public image? The old model of cancel and move on was no longer a guaranteed safe bet. Depp proved that with enough resources, enough public goodwill, and enough sheer stubbornness, an excommunicated star can not only survive but can stage a comeback on their own terms. His subsequent projects, like playing King Louis XV in Maïwenne's Jean du Barry, which opened the Cannes Film Festival to a 7-minute standing ovation, are not just career resurrections. They are acts of defiance. They are proof of life after industry death. He is no longer solely reliant on the traditional Hollywood power structures for his livelihood or his identity. His art and his audience have become his sanctuary and his shield. This independence is perhaps the most threatening rebellion of all. A star that the system cannot control is a star it cannot create, and therefore cannot destroy. In the end, Johnny Depp is a cautionary tale for Hollywood, not because he fell, but because he rose again on his own terms. He reflects back to the industry its own hypocrisy, its ruthless commodification of human beings, and its fragile dependence on narratives it can no longer fully control. His journey from beloved eccentric to industry pariah to resilient survivor has laid bare the brutal transaction at the heart of fame. The machine that built him up was the same one that tried to tear him down, and in his very public struggle, he demonstrated that the monster in the shadows was not just a man, but the system itself. He exposed the secret that everyone in Hollywood knows but few dare to utter: that loyalty is fleeting. Image is currency, and the only narrative that truly matters is the one you are willing to fight for, no matter the cost. Johnny Depp, the man they tried to erase, ended up writing his own comeback story, proving that in the battle for one's name, the truth, however messy, is the most powerful weapon of all. The final chapter in Johnny Depp's extraordinary saga begins not with a verdict, but with what comes after: the complicated, nuanced reality of resurrection in an industry that prefers its fallen stars to stay fallen. The legal victory in 2022 was not an end, but a beginning, the start of a new kind of battle, one for creative sovereignty and the right to define one's legacy on one's own terms. Where Part 2 left off with Depp's triumphant return to the Cannes Film Festival, this final installment explores the deeper implications of his journey. What it means for the future of artistic expression, for the power dynamics in Hollywood, and for every creator who has ever felt silenced by the machine. The 7-minute standing ovation for Jean du Barry at Cannes was more than just applause. It was a cultural reset. In that moment, the industry witnessed something rare and terrifying. A star being reborn through pure artistic recognition, completely bypassing the traditional gatekeepers who had cast him out. This was not a carefully managed comeback orchestrated by a major studio's PR machine. This was the public and the international artistic community, declaring that their relationship with an artist was theirs alone to define. The tears in Depp's eyes during that ovation were not just for the role, but for the validation that his voice still mattered, that his art could still communicate directly to audiences without the filter of Hollywood's approval. In the wake of this victory, Depp's career path has become a blueprint for artistic independence in the 21st century. He has deliberately stepped away from the blockbuster machinery that once defined him, instead embracing projects that speak to his personal artistic passions. His focus has shifted to music, touring with his band Hollywood Vampires, and taking on roles in European cinema that offer creative freedom over massive paychecks. This strategic pivot is revolutionary in its own right. It demonstrates that an artist can build a sustainable, meaningful career outside the studio system, powered by genuine fan connection rather than corporate marketing budgets. When he appears in a film like Modi, playing Italian artist Amedeo Modigliani, he's not just acting, he's making a statement about the kind of stories he values, and proving that commercial success and artistic integrity don't have to be mutually exclusive. The ripple effects of Depp's victory extend far beyond his own career. We're already seeing a new willingness among other artists to challenge the traditional power structures of Hollywood. The cancel and move on model that studios relied upon for so long has been fundamentally weakened. Now, when allegations surface, there's greater public skepticism, more demand for evidence, and a recognition that situations may be more complex than initial reports suggest. This doesn't mean a return to blindly trusting powerful figures, but rather a move toward a more nuanced understanding of truth and accountability. The Depp case taught the world that trial by media is a dangerous substitute for actual due process, and that the truth often resides in uncomfortable gray areas rather than black and white narratives. Perhaps the most significant impact has been on how Hollywood itself conducts business. Studio executives, once quick to sever ties at the first sign of controversy, are now forced to consider the potential backlash from prematurely dismissing talent. The massive public support for Depp demonstrated that audiences have their own relationships with artists, relationships that can withstand, and even be strengthened by, challenges to the established power structure. This has created a new calculus in risk assessment, where the cost of abandoning an artist must be weighed against the cost of alienating their fan base. It's no longer as simple as cutting ties and moving on. The court of public opinion now has real power, and it's not afraid to use it. For Depp personally, this new chapter represents something even more profound: the reclamation of self. The man we see today, whether performing on stage with his band or walking the red carpet at international film festivals, carries himself with a hard-won peace that speaks volumes. The frantic energy that once characterized his public appearances has been replaced by a quiet confidence. He seems, for the first time in years, comfortable in his own skin. Not the skin of Captain Jack Sparrow or any other character, but his own. In interviews, he speaks with a clarity and perspective that could only come from someone who has stared into the abyss of professional annihilation and emerged on the other side. His relationship with his audience has transformed too. Where once there was the typical distance between megastar and admirer, now there's a palpable sense of mutual loyalty and understanding. When fans chant his name at concerts or line the streets outside premieres, it feels less like celebrity worship and more like a collective celebration of resilience. They're not just celebrating his performances, they're celebrating his survival, and by extension, the idea that truth and authenticity can still triumph in a world that often rewards their opposite. The legacy of Johnny Depp's journey is still being written, but its contours are already clear. He has become a symbol for every artist who has ever been misunderstood, for every creative soul who has fought to maintain their voice in a system designed to homogenize it. His story proves that while Hollywood may try to erase those who don't fit its mold, it cannot extinguish the connection between a true artist and their audience. In the end, Johnny Depp wasn't just fighting for his career. He was fighting for the very soul of artistic expression, for the right to be complicated, to be flawed, to be human. And in that fight, he may have just reclaimed not only his own name, but a piece of Hollywood's soul in the process.